Is there a day where the veil becomes thin between life and death? What would you say to your lost loved ones if you had the chance? Why do ancient traditions still impact Latino culture today? Today we test the believability of the Day of the Dead.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
This will come out after the Day of the Dead, unfortunately.
When's the Day of the Dead?
As of today, the recording of this, which is Halloween, how cool is that?
Yeah.
It is tomorrow.
So tomorrow's the Day of the Dead, not
Yes,
today.
it is. Yes.
Okay, so November 1st.
November 1st, well, technically midnight at Halloween Eve. As soon as the clock strikes 12.
Thank you to everyone who attended our live Halloween special from West Virginia covering the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
That was wild.
Special thank you to Matthew and Parker. I can't make his name longer. It's just Parker. But we appreciate the assistance and the help and obviously just the fun of tagging along. But we hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I was very sick. Feeling much better now. I'm on low sleep, so I'm feeling a little Day of the Dead myself, right?
Yeah, good.
But it'll put me in that state of mind. So
bit of a zombie.
You could say that. You could say that.
I was going for the hell's her name? The Cherries? What's this? The band that did
Zombie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Them. What the hell's her name?
In your head.
Yes.
In your head.
Exactly what I was thinking about.
I think it's
the lady who shaved her head.
Well, but it was also done by that Wolf guy with the low voice.
Oh, that was a cover.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yes,
But I'm saying
you're correct. Yes,
Wolf something and then cranberries.
Cranberries.
You were close.
It was some kind of small red fruit. So before we start our episode, we want to thank, as always, our patrons who have come aboard to join us on Patreon. First, Lisa, then Corey, and then Dolan. Appreciate you guys for coming on. Couldn't do without you, for real.
Quick reminder for anyone in our not tier or anyone considering our not tier. We are down to the last 2 months of this year's pin. So as soon as you join, you also get our shirt and you get a hoodie eventually, but you immediately get mailed our special annual not tier pin, which happens to be this year a not deer. But we only got 2 more months because January 1st, 2025, that pin is retired. It hits the couch and
goes in the vault.
Chips and
well, I guess there's no vault because it doesn't come back.
Well, there's always opportunities on Patreon where we might have flash sales.
Yeah.
But we will be moving on to a new design, a new cryptid, a new pin.
Yeah.
Or a new thing. I don't want to give too much away. It could be it doesn't necessarily have to be a cryptid.
It could be anything. It could be aliens, it could be ghosts. Actually, you know what we should do? We should get a transparent pin one day. It's just nothing.
Just send them air. I paid postage. You're welcome.
Yeah. So that being said, let's move on to our sources before we get into this. I've got history.com, CWIS.com, which is the 9 steps of death, unburying the origins of a tradition. It's like the tagline of that. And then PBS, gotta love some free public radio.
Some PBS Kids.
Did you not watch PBS Kids?
Some dinosaur. That's all I'd be watching these days, dude. Dinosaur Train.
I don't know what's on there now. I'm not a patron anymore. LoloMerchadio.com. Reddit, of course, and Vocal magazine. Those are our sources for the Day of the Dead. Got some crazy things to get into today. Are you excited?
Let's do it.
I'm excited. So what is the Day of the Dead?
November 1st.
You know that now. It is the Mexican holiday that comes from a combination of religious backgrounds that has to do with the colonization and the complicated history of Mexico. It comes from Mesoamerican rituals, European religion, and Spanish culture that have created something that is still celebrated today.
Is this like Coco?
Yes, absolutely.
Great film.
I actually watched about half of Coco today to get like really into the spirit.
Sure.
And also to get some pronunciations.
You're just writing down words from the film and like, I hope this is in my notes.
Shoes. Zapatos in Spanish, I believe. So on November 1st, I spoiled it already. November 1st, those that celebrate the Day of the Dead believe that gates of heaven open up on October 31st at midnight, the stroke of midnight, and the spirits of children can rejoin their families for 24 hours. And then on the stroke of midnight on that night, November 2nd, is when adults can come to visit.
Okay, so it's not like the 30th to the 31st. It is, so when the 31st is gone and it's midnight into November 1st until November 2nd.
That's correct. Okay. And then November 1st into November 2nd to the end of that day. And that's when adults come, which I didn't know that. I don't think that's actually really well talked about, and let's talk about too much, but it is 2 days. There's also All Souls Day is another word for Day of the Dead.
Just in case you missed your ticket, you forgot you didn't get your flight, you can come back on All Souls Day.
It's like, when is Kids Day cut off? When
I think November 2nd is.
No, I mean how old are you? Like when they punch your ticket?
13.
13. I would imagine the legal age of 18.
Well, but that's very United States.
I guess that's true, but I'm imagining it. If a 17-year-old came back on the first day, that would make sense to me. What if teenagers get to go both days?
I don't know. 16, I had a job. 15, I was playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas 12 hours a day in the summer. So
different levels of responsibility. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I wonder what other people would say.
If there's an entity that is there something that kind of transitions this that escorts? Because they probably would make the decision.
If there is, it is not known. I guess you could call that God. I don't know.
I don't know anything about this. I'm just saying, if there's an entity that helps people come back and then herds them like a dog, herd dog throws them back.
How many hours of sleep around, Tyler?
3.
Yes. So the Native American people, the Nashwa people, believe that when they died, they went through 9 challenges to arrive at. Before I say this word, I just want to say I call my good friend Justin, who is about fluent in Spanish.
And you're going to say Mexican. And I'm like, I'm going to... No, they don't know this, but I'm going to call you out on that.
He is not. He is an African-American man. But he's pretty fluent in Spanish. I said, Justin, can I send you a list of words to help me pronounce them? He's like, yeah, sure, that's fine.
You should post it on the Chicago Falls Facebook page. I'm never going to let that die.
So I sent him this list of words. And about 5 minutes later, he called me back and he said, hey, Charlie, are you doing something like history about the Day of the Dead? I was like, yeah, no, we're exploring the origins and stuff. He was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I was like, do you know the words? And he's like, oh, no, not at all. I was like, why? He's like, because these are Aztec words. I was like, so you don't speak Aztec?
They don't go that you don't cover that in Spanish 1, 2, 3, or 4 in high school.
You do not. So I'm not going to say these words because I will butcher them.
They're not on YouTube?
They are, though they are on YouTube, they are extremely difficult to say.
Okay.
But they arrive at the City of the Dead, what it translates to. So the first region, which translates to the place where the dogs live, and this is where the dead find Xolo dogs. This is a breed considered sacred, and it's inhabited by a giant iguana who is guarding this place. And the travelers have to cross this river with the help of one of the dogs who assisted only the people who are deserving, the people who treated dogs well, while the others who weren't worthy were left at the shore. So that's the first challenge.
So the iguana will let you know.
The iguana, I guess, is like, yes.
They'll let you know if you're a kid or not.
I think you will too, which I would love to talk to the giant iguana.
Imagine if it was a giant chameleon and it could just immediately be gone. You wouldn't know where it went.
That'd be so cool though, right? So the second level challenge is the place where the mountains meet and the dead have to cross between the 2 hills that are consistently colliding and separating, almost like the mountains in Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just imagine these like big tectonic plates just like...
Yeah, it's so cool, right? The next level is the Obsidian Mountain. That's what they call it. And this is a hill with a path of pure obsidian, which is volcanic glass on the trail. And those that walk it are all cut, lacerated with this obsidian. It's like a challenge of fortitude. Almost like walking on coals, right? The next challenge is the place where there's a lot of snow. And this is where there's cold winds, sharp rocks, and nonstop snowfall.
So really quick.
Yeah.
You have to go through all these challenges to make it back for that 1 day or 2 days?
Yes. You have to go through all these challenges to reach almost like a heaven-like place.
To come back for a day.
It's almost like you go there once It's like all the challenges to meet this place in heaven, and then when you're in heaven, you can come back.
So so you have to do all these challenges to have eternal lifetime access to come back on the Day of the Dead.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wasn't.
And it's not like a 1-to-1 to the Day of the Dead, because this is like an ancient tradition. This is not really believed anymore.
Oh, so this is all fake.
This is ancient.
Okay. That's a fancy way. I thought you were saying that the Day of the Dead was just like a perk.
Not
That's
anymore.
like also a 401k, and you get to come back for 1 day a year.
Yeah, not so much this is really, but we'll get into why this is being discussed. So this one actually made me think of you, because I was like, I told Steph, I was like, Tyler would hate this. And this is the place where people fly and flip like a flag. And this is the 5th region. And it's a desert-like area with strong, cold winds with no gravity. The dead have to windsurf through these winds to leave.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a person listening to this that sounds like this is the coolest like level. And for me, in my fear of heights and how that affects
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah, it'd be bad. So my family's not going to be seeing me. I'll chill with the iguana.
The 6th challenge is the place where arrows dart you. And it's a path where you walk, and invisible hands throw sharp arrows into those that are crossing. It's almost like the obsidian one. It's just like a test of fortitude.
So you're feeling pain, but you can't die.
Yes, correct. Number 7, there's only a couple more left. Place where your heart is eaten.
I appreciate the breakdown to number 9.
Here lives the jaguar who eats people's hearts. In order to avoid this, the dead have to give it a stone that stimulates a heart.
Imagine that would be some like Resident Evil shit where they're like, yeah, you grabbed a stone back in challenge 4, right?
Yeah, yes.
And you got to backtrack all the way to challenge 4. You have to fly around, go through the snow. It's like the one snowbank has a whole bunch of
stones in there.
You're like, ugh.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought of that too. Number 8, the place where you have to cross the water. And this is where the travelers have to cross the sacred black waters of the river. And that leads to 9 more rivers, because this, number 9, the place where there are 9 waters. And this is where you go through 9 rivers, which involve 9 states of consciousness. This was the final step in the journey to the dead. At this point, while crossing the 9 rivers, there's a dense fog that would roll in. And extreme fatigue and the impossibility to see would come across those as a reflection in their decisions and actions made in life. It's almost like a reflection element of your life. And this connects them to everything that's happened during their lives. And eventually this connects them to everything around them. This almost gives them the ability to come back to see their loved ones. And this way the dead become one with the whole everything, and it ends their suffering. And that's when they are liberated. Their souls are liberated, and they are welcomed into the city of the dead.
You never played Metal Gear Solid 3, did you?
No, I was no good at sneaking.
Yeah, there's a section in that game, which has nothing to do with this, but it's just what it makes me think of, where every single person you ever killed in that game, like you're trudging through this like endless river, and every character, every enemy, what do they call sentry? That's what they call them. Every sentry that you killed walks past you, and just like it's revisiting. Yeah, look at all these lives you ended throughout the game. Where like there's like hardcore players that maybe only killed like bosses and like 2 people, and it's like, you're right through it. Not me, but that's just what it makes me think of. But it's
almost like a really beautiful way of like explaining that to people. That you have to like suffer, you have to go through these trials, these tribulations, and at the end you become one with everything.
So the city of the dead is like the heaven paradise.
Yes, that's right.
And so do you have like essentially, so you die and then you set up on challenge 1, or are you somewhere else and you choose to go to challenge 1?
I do not know if there's like a purgatory, like a starting level. They're like a level 0.
But essentially you have all eternity to take on these challenges.
Yeah, there's no time limit. So you have time to go back to level 4 and get the stone.
You feel like you have all the time in the world. You get all the way through challenge 9 and you're like, oh yeah, Earth blew up like like 3,000 years ago. You're like, damn.
So that is the ancient tradition that leads to the Day of the Dead. And this is the place where the person was trying to go, to this final resting place. And the Nassau, they would hold these rituals that would have been actually held in August rather than October, in order to help these people, these spirits, by providing them food, by providing them water, and providing them tools. Probably to carve the stone that you need to get the jaguar.
The heart stone?
Yeah. And this is
Do they make it literally heart, or is it like, I love you, I'm Valentine's Day heart?
I don't know.
If somebody If someone messes that up and gets that wrong, you're in trouble.
I don't
Like
know.
everyone's got like a real heart-shaped rock, and it's like my ancestor sent me. Oh shit! Some Valentine's Day shit. Yeah,
I don't know if they had. They probably didn't have Valentine's Day.
roses are red, just like your heart. Tell the lion we said hey. Or was it a lion or jaguar? Jaguar.
You're misspeciesing the lion. The jaguar.
Big cat.
It's a big cat. So this is the inspiration for the modern shrines called ofrendas that either go on a person's grave now or in the home. And that's where all that really came from, is to show that's how we got these ofrendas to help our spirits that are traveling through this journey.
Sure. Cool.
So where is it popular? The Day of the Dead is celebrated in more than just Mexico, although the celebration has its roots there. It's also celebrated in most Latin American countries, like Central America, even South American countries, and Mexico, of course, North American country.
New Mexico.
Yes, I was about to say America as well, because there's a lot of Latin roots there. I assume New Mexico.
Specifically,
Probably even Canada, too, at this point. Where there's a strong Latin population, that's where this is celebrated, because it's where it stems from. But you don't necessarily have to be Latino to celebrate it. Like, we could go home if we work real hard and make ofrendas tonight. I would consider it. I've thought of it doing.
it's not my culture, and I would have to learn a lot more before I just decided to whip something together.
Absolutely.
I like the idea of it, but it's just not like I'm very much in the dark.
I agree. I totally understand. I find a lot. I give this culture a lot of respect. I think it's very interesting, very cool, but it's not mine.
I'll have to watch Coco a couple more times.
I told Steph I was going to watch it in Spanish. She was like, "Are you really going to?" I was like, "No, I don't speak Spanish."
Put the subtitles on.
How is the Day of the Dead celebrated? Parties and parades are a common way to celebrate the dissolving barrier between the worlds of the dead and living. People also gather in town squares and community centers in order to celebrate as well. They eat, they drink, they play music, they dance, and they even pretend to be death.
To be death.
To be death.
Death.
Yeah, those that...
I didn't know if that was a lisp on deaf.
No.
Or you're saying death.
Death.
Okay.
The Grim Reaper.
Sure.
So during this time, when the dead visit, they party with the living, and the family makes the deceased's favorite foods and leave things of offerings on the ofrendas and the graves, things that they would like to do. Like if someone was a musician, you'd leave a saxophone or like a pack of reeds or something. Or if someone was like a really big video game player, you leave a controller.
Now, this is a question that's impossible for you to answer.
Okay. Personally.
Do you think these people truly believe this, or do you think this is our culture, this is our tradition, this is what you do?
Boy, I think that boils down to a lot of yes and no's.
Yeah, what do you think? Or is that discussion? Am I jumping to the discussion
already? I think that's more of a discussion thing. Yeah, I think it's more of a discussion question because there's a lot of complexities there. It's a very superstitious culture, so I think that definitely plays into it, but we'll get more into that later. I'm just
going to try and ask you like 5 more questions I already know you don't know the answer to before we get to the end of this episode.
Okay.
I think I'm already on 3, so.
It's okay. I don't mind those questions because they lead to good conversation. So the skeleton and the skull are very symbolic for this day and this time. People usually wear skull masks. They eat candy skulls or sugar skulls come from. They also eat spicy dark chocolate, which I don't like dark chocolate in general, but spice on top of that. No, thank you.
I feel like it'd be like a cayenne pepper dark chocolate.
It would be.
I would try that.
Are they good?
No. I'm saying I would try it.
Okay.
I'm in my spicy era.
I bet you'd like it then.
I like spicy food now. And I mean, if given the choice between milk or dark chocolate, I'd probably lean milk, but I have no problem with dark chocolate.
Okay. Well, you probably like it then. And they also drink a drink, but it is a corn-based. It's called atolo. Atella? Otoli. I don't know what it tastes like or anything, but it's corn-based, so that's kind of strange. But interesting.
It's just corn and water in a blender.
Oh, boy. So when people are celebrating the Day of the Dead, they say to each other, Feliz Dia de los Muertos, which I know. You don't have to say it. I did my best here.
What does that mean?
Happy Day of the Dead.
Okay.
Like Feliz Navidad. This is our last section before we get to the encounters. And this is about how to make an ofrendas, what's on ofrendas. What is an ofrendas? Traditionally, what goes on ofrendas has to do with the loved ones that have been lost and are being remembered. Now, some of these may be frowned upon in some places. It all depends on regional traditions. Like different places of America have different kinds of, we say pop, right? A lot of places.
Claire got me saying soda now.
A lot of people say soda. I say pop typically. It's kind of like almost like that. It's traditional. Or it's
Highway, freeway.
yeah, exactly. Bubbler from Minnesota.
Bubbler?
Yeah, they say bubbler instead of water fountain.
Oh.
Yeah, bubbler.
Tick turn or turn signal?
Or
Clicker.
Shantae says shopping buggy for the shopping store, the cart.
Is she from Brooklyn or the Bronx?
Yeah, she's from Brooklyn. So that's being said, because there's no rules really. Some things can be discouraged, some places, some not.
Are these kept all the time, or are these taken down and put up?
They're put up. They're taken down. They're not all the time.
How many generations do you think this goes through? Like, imagine if we were in that culture.
Yeah.
Like, my parents would have put one up for their grandparents.
Yeah.
But like, I never met my great grandparents.
Mhm.
And then, my son Joey, that would be his great, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
do you eventually, or like,
It's a fun question. That's one of those questions that I have no way of knowing.
okay, that's 4.
But if you think about the movie Coco specifically, right?
The forgotten aspect.
Yeah. If his great grandmother hadn't been alive, which she was barely hanging on there, there's no way they would have remembered the great grandfather. So I feel like probably they go to about 3, but I'm not sure. They would probably go as far as you can.
Bat and cleanup. All right.
So there are no rules. They can be as big or as grand or as small and meaningful as they need to be to fit in the home. But there are some things that are staples of the ofrendas that almost need to be there. They need to have representation of the 4 elements: fire, earth, wind, and water. And these represent the terrestrial plane of earth. And it helps ease the transition from the spirit world for the spirits. The ofrendas also need to have a strong element of decoration, and it shows the dead that the family really cares, and it welcomes them in for the night. And lastly, there needs to have an element of food and or other things the departed love, like the guitar from Coco, right? Incense, actually burn incense today, thinking about this, is usually burned to purify the space. It also comes from the Catholic religion of the church burning a lot of incense to purify. So it comes from that as well. Before incense, they would have used plants like flowers. These things are called poplo picados. They're almost like, they remind me of doilies, kind of how they're designed, but they have like shapes in them. These are put on the ofrenda to represent wind. Candles are representation for fire, and salt is actually for purification and stability. I don't know if they put it like around it or just like a bowl, but there is some element of salt as well. And on the ofrenda is something called pan de muerto. It translates to Day of the Dead bread. And it's a special kind of bread that they make only for the Day of the Dead. And it represents different body parts. I don't know how exactly, but also has roots in ancient traditions. Like people have been making this bread for the spirits for a long time. Hundreds of years, if not thousands. The most important element, however, is the photographs of the loved ones. They are there to honor the dead and to show that they are still cared for. The pictures are usually doing something that that person loved to do, or them just looking really good. So if someone's like a snowboarder, right? You get them either snowboarding or you get their prom photo.
Now you just have one of those digital cameras that just change pictures.
Actually,
digital
you probably
frames.
could. That'd be really sweet, actually. That'd be kind of cool. Just like cycle through all the things they like to do. Or like all the family members.
Save space. Like we only have this small end table, so
I bet they'd appreciate
y'all
it.
are on this thumb drive.
If for some reason there are no pictures, which I think was like an older problem, they would represent that person with a sugar skull. So they would still be remembered, but they wouldn't have their photograph. Now, some families even put, this is pretty extreme, I didn't see a lot of people do this, but some families even put mats down underneath for a place to rest. Like to come and sleep there.
I wonder if anyone had a drawing done. Like if there was no photo available, if they could get a drawing.
Like a painting or something?
Yeah, like a legitimate one. Or I mean, if you could get one by a child, then maybe it counts as something. But,
I think definitely the intention is there, is what really does it. I think
that probably was what they did before photos.
I think so.
It's probably
too.
drawings and paintings.
Drawings and even just those like sugar skulls too. Just some kind of representation.
The whole family looks the same.
So those are the traditions, the history of the Day of the Dead, how it's celebrated, and the ofrenda. Now let's get into some experiences. So these are experiences. First one is from Reddit.
Do you have an experience of somebody going through the challenges?
No.
Come on.
No, I don't have that.
It's somewhere on Reddit. You know that's somewhere on Reddit.
I did not.
Probably no sleep, but
Yeah, if anything, it would have to be like, it's from the perspective of like 1,000 years ago too. So this is actually from Reddit. It's a short story. It's about a girl who got
you can just tell us the story, right?
I guess I'll just tell you. I got excited. So it's from...
If you want to preface it, you can preface it. I'm not trying to take that away from you.
No, there's not much to it, so I'll just do it.
Okay.
It's from Mendes Law. She said, in Mexican culture, it comes on November 1st to set up an ofrenda, an altar, to show the deceased relatives that they've come to, that they're welcome in the home. So she got a video that was sent to her by her aunt. And she said this video was taken in Texas at night. My aunt had spent all day cooking Mexican food to place at the altar for the Day of the Dead. She completed the altar with the pictures from our relatives and sent us a video of her finished work. Now, please note that the video was taken in a quiet neighborhood at night. There was no TV on, no music on at the time. The only normal sound in the video is of my aunt's slippers as she walks around the altar to film. However, if you listen closely, you can hear screams and what seems like a woman singing in the background. This video was taken last year, but I'm posting it now.
This is both sweet and scary.
This video is terrifying.
It's if you didn't tell me this, okay, if you didn't tell me the context,
Yeah.
and you show that to me, I would just think other people outside were celebrating the Day of the Dead.
Right. I would have thought that too.
Or we're sure.
She seemed pretty positive. She posted the same thing twice. She made that same post 2 times.
It just like I mean, I'm not trying to discredit it.
No,
Maybe I
know
but
what you mean.
It sounds like other people outside are like the when you talk about the celebratory
Right.
yelling and the that's what it seems like to me.
But it seems like this isn't on the Day of the Dead itself to me. This is like the day before. Maybe I'm just me reaching.
There's
She
no
doesn't
way
say
for me
that.
to know. I don't know. If it's not altered, if it's not added in post, and if it's not people outside, definitely creepy.
It is chilling too.
Is she doing? So she's not making any noise.
No,
because the
no
chanting
noise.
thing was kind of. I mean, I think of it as chanting almost more than singing. Like
I
it
did
was.
too. She said the only noise her aunt made was walking around. So the shuffling noise was her. But that's
Okay.
it. Yeah, that's it. So that's, I don't know. It's creepy. I just don't know.
If there really was no one outside celebrating, and if it wasn't in post.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is
Yeah.
remarkable
Yeah.
evidence.
So we'll post that video on our socials. This next experience is from Reddit user Pelete Dead. And she said, so I grew up in Southern California, in a town that big time celebrated the Dias de los Muertos. I'm not Mexican, but my oldest daughter's father is from Guadalajara. And so I've done my best raising her to feel connected to her roots. I moved to the Midwest years ago to finish a PhD. When I met and married a white guy, we had a little daughter together. I've always put out ofrendas for my Irish nana and my German grandfather, because growing up in the Mexican community taught me the value in such practice. I like to keep my oldest child connected to where she was born and her culture. Last year, my husband's father died rather unexpectedly from his late onset muscular dystrophy. My husband has really struggled with the loss over the past year. His father, Randy, was a wonderful man, salt of the earth, railroad worker. I only knew him for 4 years, but I loved him deeply. When he died, my husband changed. We were both professors, my husband and I, and his dedication to his work slipped. He drank a lot more, and he was up late watching football with his father's ashes nearby. And he started crying out of the blue suddenly. Randy was such an important part of what motivated him to be a good father, a husband, and a scholar. He was the kind of blue-collar social justice warrior, baby boomer that's hard to find. So this year I asked my husband if we could put out an ofrenda for Randy. So I gathered photos of his hat that he wore on the railroad, his ashes, and cold summer sausage, and PBR. I placed it all next to my nan's ofrenda and built a bookcase in our front living room yesterday. I lit the candles, and the kids were trick-or-treating and had friends over, and it was such fun and chaos around the house. The candles glowed and the ofrendas were in the background, reminding us of the families we miss. Nothing noteworthy. Just like all the years before, my daughter said her hellos to my Nana and grandmother, and this year to Randy, and we went about our holiday as usual. But after the kids went to bed, my husband came home from a get-together with colleagues, and we had a stern disagreement about his drinking. I was upset because he continued to use alcohol to help cope with his grief. He was apologetic and kind, but still very much in denial. He huffed off to bed drunk and discouraged. I stayed downstairs to turn off the lights and blow out the candles. I went to the ofrendas and I stopped and as I do every year, I had a long talk with my Nana. We were very good friends in life and I miss her a ton, even though she died 16 years ago now. I took care of her while she was dying, and the night she passed away was very overwhelming. So I was there at 3:19 a.m. talking to my Nana like she was in the room. I was sober, but for a glass of rosé I drank for my grandmother, and I was listening to Ah, Sweet Mystery of Life on my phone. This is one of Nana's favorite Irish operas. I was just chilling in the feelings about my Nana, not thinking of Randy at all, when suddenly a framed photo shot or was pushed forward with such force it flung the salami and the beer off the shelf. His hat flew from the shelf, and the beer went everywhere. I was stunned. I couldn't move for a moment. I stood there shaking, trying to figure out how in the hell this mess happened. Nothing of my Nana's, no coffee or toast or photos were disturbed. My grandmother's ofrenda was untouched as well. No windows were open, nothing had shifted or fallen except for every single item associated with Randy. I was crying suddenly, picking up the salami and beer and laughing. I said out loud, okay, I'll go get your son. And I ran upstairs, almost giddy, and I woke up my husband. I didn't tell him what just happened, but I insisted like a crazy person that he had to go downstairs and talk to his father. I left him downstairs and tucked in. Today, he told me that he talked to his father until sunup, that he felt that his father was there with him, listening to him, loving him, helping him with his grief. My husband, who is always very cynical about this idea of death, things like ofrendas, thanked me for calling Randy home to us. And he said, next year, we're going to grill him a steak. End story.
It's a pretty awesome story.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, especially, gosh, I couldn't even imagine that. That's so powerful.
The salami, the flying salami.
Yeah, it's a pretty good story. I was going to add if it's real, but I feel like it's so...
It's fair to add if it's real.
Yeah.
You're not a bad person for adding that. You're allowed to be skeptical.
So our next story is from user Rubens Mejia. He's a quote, "My father's dead friend walked me home on Dias de los Muertos. I wanted to share this experience that happened to me around 15 years ago when I started studying in town away from my parents' home. There was a man, let's call him Tony, who was a good friend of my father. Helped him at work sometimes, hence I hung out with him usually. When I was 17, I moved to a bigger city to start the university, so I traveled every 2 months to visit my parents for a long weekend vacation. After my second year away, his friend Tony died from alcohol abuse. My father told me on a phone call how that happened, or at least how he heard it happened. Around 2 months later, on Dias de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, here in Mexico, I went to visit my parents, also to go visit the tombs of my family and the traditions I go. And to this point, I literally forgot about Tony's death. The apparition comes around because I didn't catch the bus that was arriving during the day to my parents' hometown. So I was forced to take one that arrives there around 2 a.m. in a small, quiet town. So since I didn't find any taxis or buses to the station, I decided to walk home. Around 5 blocks away from the house, I had to pass a bridge. People say that a decapitated donkey spirit.
Decapitated donkey?
Yeah.
What?
A decapitated donkey spirit scares people during the night. So I was a bit scared. But then, suddenly, this friend, Tony, reached me on his bike. I didn't mention this, but he always rode a bike. And he asked me if I was just coming home from university. Maybe because I was originally thinking about the decapitated donkey, I completely forgot about the fact that Tony was supposed to be dead. So I started to talk to him, and we walked past this bridge and a couple more blocks for about 4 or 5 minutes, talking about the school, food in the other city, stuff like that. So just 1 block away from my parents' house, he told me, all right, I have to go check on some other things here, pointing to another direction. But keep safe and say hello to your father for me. We said goodbye, and I got home. Since it was early morning, I walked directly into my room and waited for the next day to go see my parents. It was until the next morning when I just was about to tell my father about Tony that I remembered that he was already dead. At that moment, I didn't tell my parents, but a little later that day, my father mentioned that he saw me arriving and asked me if I was drunk or something because he saw me talking to nobody. So I told him. I'm glad I got some kind of company on that bridge because I was afraid because of the stories and also because of that scare from that donkey. I didn't pay attention to the fact that more company was someone I knew and was already dead. It's kind of funny for me, and I actually never felt any kind of fear at that moment. So thanks to the old friend that was there with me, even after death. End quote. End story.
I think when he left him and he's like, I got to go take care of a couple things, I think it was like a quick camera pan and he's cracking his knuckles and up comes the decapitated donkey. And they just had this huge Tekken Mortal Kombat battle and he won.
See, I didn't think of that at all. In my mind, I think he's going to his own, like ofrendas with his own family.
No, donkey fight.
Donkey fight. I see.
Then goes to see the family.
Covered in donkey blood.
Yeah. He's the one that decapitated the donkey. First, I thought you were going to say he was going to get on the bicycle with him. Like E.T. it, where he's like in a little basket. Thanks for giving me a ride, Tony.
That'd be pretty special too.
It just starts flying. Like he's like, this is unusual.
So this is our last story. This is from Grace, and this is in Vocal Magazine. It's called The Last Day. Actually, I found this story last night. I was having breakfast with my brother that day. My mom appeared to me and mentioned that she wanted both of us to take a visit to my grandparents' tomb so that she could drop off food, among other things, because it was the last day of the Day of the Dead celebration. It was my brother, both my parents, and myself. We took off that morning, and my mother decided to make a full day out of it the last minute. So I gotta tell you, I was a little annoyed by her decision to do this, but we were about 30 minutes into the road trip, so I had no choice. She wanted to stop by 2 of our aunt's houses as well, but she didn't want to spend the night at either of them. We took care of our business at the cemetery, and we headed towards my aunt's house. We had lunch and some laughs and moved on and headed to my other aunt's house. By the time we realized it had gotten a little late, my aunt had insisted that we'd spend the night, but my mother utterly refused. Something about her having a horrific paranormal experience that she would never want to talk about, and there was no way in hell we were going to stay. It was close to midnight when we started heading back. The roads were deserted and creepy, and I was extremely tired and it had been a long day already. My brother's being a doofus that kept making jokes and making creepy sounds. My parents were out, and I didn't want to wake them up because he was being idiotic. I kept driving, and he kept at it. I was at my wit's end when he decided to turn the lights off and tell me, when you turn the lights on again, you're going to see a scary face in the windshield. I lightly punched him and turned the lights back on. As soon as I did, I almost hit a group of people that were walking on the side of the road. It looked like it was a family of 5, parents and the kids, I was assuming. I got so freaked out, but I was able to brake in time. But the weird thing is that the family had no reaction to my brake screeching. I was almost about to hit them with my car, and there was nothing from them. They didn't turn around, they didn't yell, they didn't get scared, absolutely nothing but silence. I stayed in place for a few minutes to collect my thoughts, and my brother asked if we should go check on them to make sure they were okay. The family just kept walking down the road. There were motionless arms to their sides, just kept walking and looking forward. It was kind of strange seeing a group of people that time of night, especially in this particularly isolated road. I decided to start driving again, but lower my speed this time, and since my brother felt guilty, he put his head out the window and yelled, "Hey, you guys okay? Need any help?" And he turns around, paper white, in a low but urgent voice tells me to drive. We need to get out of here. Again, thinking he was playing around, I lowered my speed even more. And he said, "Grace, you need to listen to me and drive. Those people have no eyes." What? Stop messing with me, I said. I'm not joking. I promise, please, for the love of God, drive. I started getting scared myself. I didn't want to look this way. Hesitant at first, I started to drive, but curiosity got the best of me. And at the last minute, I decided to look through the rearview mirror. My brother was right. Those people had no eyes. I'd never seen or expected anything paranormal before. I was frozen in fear, but I sped up without looking at them until they vanished in the distance. The rest of the way was quiet. We couldn't even look at each other. Nevertheless, say anything at all. I told her mother what happened to us the following day, but very casually, she tells us, "Oh, I believe what you guys saw. No need to be scared, though. It was the dead going back to where they came from. It was their last day." End quote.
She's like, duh. Keep up.
Stupid, it's ghost day.
Was it dark out?
Yeah, it was nighttime.
Now, I'm speaking for myself here. Well, I'll ask you this question. This is one you can answer because you've driven before.
I have driven, yeah.
If it was nighttime and there was no light and you passed people and you looked in your rearview mirror, do you think you'd be able to tell that they had no eyes?
That's a good question. It depends if there are lights on the road. There might have been lights on the road.
I'm just curious.
Like complete darkness, probably not.
I mean, there could be moonlight and stuff too, but it's like by the time you're past them and you rearview your mirror.
Also, the red lights from the brake lights too, if you're going slow enough, which you seem to be going pretty slow.
Yeah, I guess it depends how close they were behind. Yeah. It's really creepy visual. Very creepy terrifying visual, a really spooky detail, a really good story.
Yeah. That's why I was vocal.
She's just so nonchalant.
The mom?
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Duh.
That's so funny to me.
Don't you guys know anything? What do they teach you at school?
So it's more about happy experiences with Day of the Dead. Even that one is still it's scary. The visual is scary. What happened to them was scary. But the idea is that they were just going home.
Yeah, it's context. It's the context of bringing someone you love back and having a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Versus the other idea of the Day of the Dead, where it's like they do come back and then they leave, and this is someone just catching. You know what I mean? It's like how the same moment from two different perspectives can have such different meaning.
Absolutely, yeah. But with that being said, let's get into the discussion. Talk about this. So we're going to talk about the Day of the Dead, Dias de los Muertos. However, we're not going to discuss if it's real. Of course it's real. People celebrate all the time. What we're discussing is the idea that spirits are actually coming back, that this tradition is amplification or like something that is the reason the spirits are coming back, and they're not just ghosts following people around.
Are you talking about our believability scale?
I am, because we got to give everything context, and we like to rank our things. We have to rank how we believe these events.
Topics.
Yes, these topics, if you will. And the most we can give it is believable, down to viable, skeptical, and if you don't believe it all, unbelievable.
Unbelievable. So we're not ranking the idea of the celebration because obviously people do it.
Right, of course.
And we're not discussing the challenges because that's...
that's more of a historical background. We're really just talking about spirits coming back on the Day of the Dead.
So like spirits that come back on this day that would have otherwise not come back.
Yes.
So there's like some merit to this particular day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or even the religion and the ritual aspect of it. Now, I think, personally, I'll tell you how I'm leaning. I'm leaning toward believable. Because, first reason, we believe in ghosts. It's a fact. We believe in ghosts.
We do both believe in ghosts. Our benchmark in life on the podcast is Charlie and I, like if we're looking at Venn diagrams, that little middle section, is Charlie and I both believe in ghosts and aliens. Those are the two. That's our, now it branches to other things.
It does.
But that Venn diagram middle ground for us, ghost and aliens.
So, I mean, those are counters for me. They all make sense. Even just from the level of ghosts are real. I like all of them. They make a lot of sense.
I like them. It helps. It helps if you write a good story.
They fit to me in like what it would be like if ghosts visited and you were able to see them. Now, I also like the idea that during the fall months of the beginning of November, end of October, that the veil thins. To me, it's the world shifting to another phase of its time.
We went from summer to summer here. And I'm not complaining about it, but it was 75 degrees.
It is really warm.
Gorgeous.
But it's that shift that's coming. And the veil is thinner. I think it is. And to me, the Day of the Dead, this ritual, all this energy you put into these ofrendas, thinking about the people, offering the things they like, giving them those tools, those games, those things that they really enjoy, their favorite foods, thinking about them, and the veil being thinner, to me, it amplifies and makes this, maybe it tears a hole in the veil that's already very thin. And it lets those people that were stuck on the other side, not able to communicate regularly, easily, it lets them come back for a couple nights or a night or two. And it lets them see their family in a way that they've not been able to do before. And it lets them be more powerful than they may be regularly. Like the father, the Randy, that one story. I don't think if it wasn't for the Day of the Dead,
He wouldn't be able to knock over all this stuff.
he wouldn't have been as powerful as he was.
Well, and also the part that we don't get, because our narrator tucked it in. I mean, like he felt like he talked to his father, until sunrise.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So to me, that's why I'm leaning toward believable in this. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What do you think?
This is difficult for me because it's so. I only know this as an outsider and a very ignorant outsider. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like through various forms of media that probably isn't. It's not like it's created. It's like I'm not watching something from people of that culture talking about this. You know what I mean? It's like secondhand.
Yeah.
So my biases where I come from, and by where I come from, I mean like I guess just my own personal biases. I don't know how much I believe in the Day of the Dead, like in terms of November 1st, November 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it feels a little arbitrary. And again, that's coming from someone who is acknowledging that I'm ignorant and I don't like I'm not well read or studied in this. But it's like even like the witching hour, like when we talked about that, like there's, you could potentially buy into it, but at the same time, it's like we created time, we created the clock. We didn't create time, but we created the tracking of time, and the sun, and all that stuff. So it's like, well, we created the calendars and the days in November, and maybe it just happened to line up. So it being those particular days, maybe there's something from thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago where there is more merit, or maybe it is just that's when the veil is the thinnest. It's imagine that day at 3 a.m. or midnight, as some people say. It's probably bumping.
Can I ask though?
Let me get.
Okay, go ahead.
But so here's my next point. Even if the day is arbitrary, we both believe in intention.
Yeah.
So if you have an entire group of people doing this very intentional thing at the same exact time, I find it more likely that is what is causing the day than the day. Now, I mean, that's like the chicken or the egg. Like, is it because of that day? And then they're doing the rituals and that's causing it? Or are they doing the rituals and it could be any day if they all agreed upon it? But you can't get 10 people to agree on one thing. So it's lucky that they all agree on that as it is. And that's a joke, but not to be insensitive. If I'm not viable right now. I believe in ghosts, whether or not this is a special time. Obviously, to a lot of people it is. And I feel bad saying I'm not sure, but I'm not. Like it's not something I've experienced. But the reason I go viable more than like a skeptical is not because of the day. It's because I think that there's, at a Ouija board on a small scale, you're putting this out there and people get responses from that.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine neighborhoods, towns, countries all doing this thing at the same time, putting that kind of energy out there. Now that could be enough to bring people back.
And I totally agree with that. I think the intention has a lot to do with this.
So I'm going viable, but that's the end of my point. So what was your question?
That was my question. Do you think it could be any time? Like they had picked like spring to have the Day of the Dead. Do you think all the intention, the focus on this would be enough amplification to allow these spirits that maybe wouldn't come back to be able to
unknowledgeable, ignorant me? Yeah. I think, well, here's the thing. Let's give it a shot. Day of the Dead, the return of the Day of the Dead part 2.
It's like Christmas in July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's trying it again. I mean, that's a joke. Stay with the tradition. It's not my tradition. It's not my culture. Who am I to say anything? The way that things break down in my brain, it's more about the fact that all these people are doing it at the same time, and that's putting out energy more than like, if we have to do it on this day.
I think you're losing your own train of thought there, but with the lack of sleep.
No, I thought that was pretty well put together.
No,
I'll have to listen back to this, but I felt like it was a pretty good argument.
I see what you're saying. I think it totally makes sense because in the same way, I almost feel the same way. But I do think there is that element of spooky veil thinning in October, November. And that's why I was born in November, because like I'm really close to
at the
that.
end of November though. Your Thanksgiving, baby. Your
so-
cranberry sauce.
So anyway,
Your pumpkin pie, which should be all year round.
I don't think pumpkin pie should be eaten by anybody. So that's me. Anyway, so I go believable this, you go viable, and that's the Day of the Dead. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Day of the Dead, Dias de la Muertos. I'm very white. I try my best.
I was French club president, so this isn't my jam.
I do really appreciate the culture. I respect it a lot. I think it's very cool. It's scary, but also in a beautiful kind of way because it's a lot of family connections.
Yeah, it's all about the perspective.
Yeah, it is. And if you enjoyed that, if you want to hear some more on the podcast, we have mentioned up top, but we have a Patreon that you can hear a lot more going on. So if you're chopping vegetables, you're walking your dog, you need something to do, join Patreon. You can listen to games, interviews, a lot of things going on there.
Especially if you're chopping onions. It'll put you in the mood, to the sadness and just like wanting to hear some creepy stories.
Yeah.
Crying.
Like mini encounters.
Yeah. Sometimes the burn is like so bad when you're chopping onions.
Sometimes they can be particularly.
It almost feels like it gets on your hands. Like I feel like it happens a lot when I'm wearing glasses and I put my glasses up and I like rub my eyes with the back of my palm. And I feel like I might as well have been rubbing onion on my palm because I feel like it just makes it worse.
Yeah. Well, like chilies. Like if you get that stuff on your hands and you go to the bathroom.
Go to Chili's?
If you go like cut a chili.
Cut a chili.
Yeah, like
Not
a
at
spicy
Chili's.
chili. Probably at Chili's too. But if you get like a spicy chili and you're cutting it and you get it in your hands and you go to the bathroom.
I don't
with the
believe
spicy
you
chili.
cut spicy chilies. 'Cause
No.
you don't like spicy food.
My dad did.
Okay.
And he went to the bathroom with it and he told me about that.
If you are enjoying the podcast, so yeah, Patreon's out there. If you want the bonus content, go check that out. There's so much over there and it helps support the podcast, which means a lot to us and it's all good stuff. But if you like what you hear and you're listening on Apple, you can leave a 5-star review and a one-time overarching comment. But if you're listening on Spotify, you can comment on every single episode. It could be a roller coaster ride. You can love it and then hate it and love it and think it's mid and love it and love it and love it and love it and love it. Charlie, what have the people been saying on Spotify?
So from our last episode,
The live show.
the people
Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
I was going to just go with it. But some people have said,
Some people. They say.
Crew Girl said, another great live show. Thanks for toughing it out, Tyler. Because Tyler was sick as hell.
Yeah.
Jim for the hellos said, come to Los Angeles, Skid Row. We'll haunt you guys.
Yeah, I'm good.
I mean, I'd drive through it.
I would try.
Anna said, such an interesting episode. Love you guys. Love you too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And last one from Kayla said, I can't tell you how excited I was to see the title of this episode. I was there that night as well. It's a scary, sad, impressive place.
Yeah, it was really cool getting a chance to tour because obviously with our main episodes that we do throughout the year, we don't typically travel. We just research and talk about it. So for Halloween, it's always fun to actually go experience it. And it just adds a whole other layer of, even though we didn't experience anything paranormal there, you can still feel it. You can see it. You can touch it. Like where the kids are like using they were out on like Thorazine. I think it's called Thorazine.
Yeah.
And they were just scratching while looking out the window. Like we could feel that, you could hear the squeaky floorboards and see the wallpaper. So it adds a whole other layer.
That's so crazy. Kayla said she was there. Like we could have been on tour with Kayla.
Same.
I doubt it. She probably would recognize it. Well, maybe she.
I don't think so. No, maybe we were talking though. I feel like we'd be more easily recognized by voice.
I guess we
than
didn't
by
really talk that much.
visual.
Yeah.
Parker and I were talking about Ohio State. I know that for a fact. Also, I hope everyone had a great Halloween.
Yeah.
Just in general, a happy Halloween. I celebrate today by doing a virtual 5K.
Yeah.
I did
the Mothman.
Outrun the Mothman.
Did you outrun him?
Nope. And I put that in there. I did not outrun him. I did a little loop around North Canton this morning before work, and I got to use they don't know. I had to use my new shoes that I got fitted for my feet. So the footies. So that was cool. It was a good time, and it was the profits went to good stuff. So
I also hope you had a good Day of the Dead.
Yeah,
And
this is
All Souls
all
Day.
past that now.
Yeah.
But hey, we really appreciate you guys for listening to the podcast and supporting us. We appreciate you. If you weren't listening, it would just be two friends talking in front of microphones, and we could just do that without the microphone.
We could.
So, but we appreciate you guys. It means a lot. So thanks for listening to the podcast that is going to go learn how to windsurf so we can level up on the challenges. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.